Introduction to Cloud Computing Online Backup Solutions. You know, it used to be that the only way we could back up our systems usually involved tape backups or, shudder, floppy disks. Now, even nowadays, with large RAID arrays and redundancy systems, it makes sense to have our data stored and backed up in multiple places. In fact, one of the first services I've utilized on the cloud was an online backup service. In this CBT Nugget, we look at 3 of the top online services and how they can help keep our valuable data safe from harm. When you look at online backup solutions as an IT admin person, or whether it's just for personal use as well, there are a couple things you need to know before you begin, which we'll cover in our first slide here in just a second. But then what we're going to do basically in this CBT Nugget is we're going to give you some demos of Mozy. We'll show you where Carbonite and what it looks like, and then just point you in the direction of SkyDrive, which is very similar to the previous two in a lot of what it does. And just so you know, there are many different online backup solutions out there. These are the big 3, I would say, but I do want to put a little caveat in on this. CBT Nuggets as a company, myself personally as an instructor, we do not promote one over another. We want to let you guys try and see which one fits you, but these are some good examples of what's out there and what you can utilize in the cloud solution, and so that's why we're going to show you these 3. Before you get started, I got a few backup tips that I've learned over the years in the IT industry. Most of you are going to probably be nodding your heads in agreement with me going, oh yeah, Chris, we know these. Number 1, redundancy rules. We used to say this all the time when working with my Cisco products or working with Microsoft or anything. You always want to make sure that you have backup and then back up those backups. So whether you're going to use these online backup systems and solutions like Mozy or Carbonite or SkyDrive or any of the others, make sure that you're also backing up to a hard drive, an external hard drive, maybe to some DVDs if you want to, especially with the double density ones that you can do. You can get about 8 gigs onto DVDs now. Well, use them. It might take you a little while. Do tape backup. That's always been around, and then you can send them off to some place like Iron Mountain or some other off-site location. Allow for extra time. This is also important because when you are sending the data across the internet, most of us don't have huge pipes to send this data faster than maybe a couple of megabits per second. Now, if you have, let's say, 1 terabyte of information you're backing up, you could see how that is going to take a heck of a lot of time just to get that initial backup. So allow for extra time. You might want to do this over a weekend. You might want to make sure that you have that extra time and make sure that people are setting it automatically so it happens when they leave work or for whenever the computer is idle and then leave the computers on. Those are just some tips to allow for that extra time it's going to take, especially for that initial backup. After that, most of them do incremental settings and you won't have to worry about it too much. Also, never set it and forget it. Always check your settings. At least once a week, go and make sure that the backup occurred, that there was a history. All the products that you're going to see here will tell you when was the last time you backed up, and they also have settings that say, hey, we've noticed you haven't backed up in the last 7 days. You might want to do a backup. You're going to lose data if you don't do that. Those last 7 days will be gone forever because we don't have it. So always remember that you never set it and forget it when it comes to online backups. Now, of course, we could spend hours showing you all the cool online backup services that there are. So we're just going to show you 2 on this particular CBT Nugget. And don't forget that any one of these, it's going to be pretty much the same process. You sign up for the service. You then make sure that you have your computer, your desktop, or a server, in the case of a business, hooked up to the internet and enable it. But we're going to go ahead and start off today with Mozy, or Mozy as some people call it. And Mozy.com is the website that you'll go to, and at this point you come in here and you can sign up for Mozy here, or you can sign up here. Now there are 2 types. Mozy has a home non-commercial or commercial, non-commercial I should say, which is home for unlimited, but that again is if you're just using it for pretty much 1 computer or a couple computers from your home. If you're doing business, you're going to want to use Mozy Pro, plus you get the much more expanded administrative panel that you're going to be looking for as an IT admin, right? So I'm going to go ahead and sign up here and put in my Mr. CBT Nuggets at gmail.com. Top secret password, and go down here and select Mozy Pro. It's going to continue just like most things you've seen in this series. You're going to be signing up for an account. In this case, Mr. CBTnuggets.com. And what kind of industry you are, you can select. They pretty much just want to know this information for their purposes, and so we'll go ahead and put in. So they can call information. You can say where you heard about it. Of course, you heard it from a friend. That would be us. And if you find out some people get promo codes, you can check online for some of those. We'll go ahead and click continue. And when we get into this, it's going to basically say which one are you going to want to do. If you have a server, it's $6.95 a month, and then they charge you per gigabyte, 50 cents per month for a gigabyte that's up there. So in this case, we're just going to do one desktop for me, and then do one desktop for there. So you have to put the amounts that you want, number of license, and the number of gigabytes, and we'll say we'll do 10 gigabytes. Okay, so that's going to be another $5 a month. So that'll be nice. So we can do that. Okay, you can do an annual. You get 1 month free. If you do 2 year, you get 3 months free. Or we'll go ahead and just do a monthly. So click continue. It's going to then pop up the page. Okay, how are you going to pay for this? So I'm going to go ahead and put in this information and pause, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so once you are done and charged up for that, you can simply go to Account, and it is going to begin setting your desktop up, your computer up, in order for it to send your data and back it up to the online site. So one thing to always remember, anytime you're doing one of these online backups, is you always want to make sure that the data that you have backed up online is also data that you're backing up locally. You want to back it up onto DVD or external hard drives and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and click through the wizard. I always like Mr. Wizard because they usually help you out, but it just, gets you set up for that. So if you want to do this, the nice thing is you can do, again, with the Pro side, you can set up administration and groups, so that way certain kind of group modes, you can have sub-administrators for certain user accounts. And again, this is probably if you're more in the medium size, or you can use a single admin and you can actually say whose computer can use how many and those kind of things. So we'll go ahead and click next, stay with single admin. Do you want to do this with automatic? So whenever your computer is not being used, in other words, I'm not typing something in or working on a document or surfing the web, whenever it's just kind of sitting there, Mozy Pro will then begin to back up. You can also schedule it for the time of the day. If you know that you leave your computers on and you want to have them set at midnight on a certain day, or you can actually have it backing up constantly as they go through. Now again, the nice thing is you can modify these settings or any of the advanced on how you want the backups, like only changed files. Do you want more of an incremental backup versus a daily full normal backup? Things like that can be set up in the client configuration control panel, which we're going to show you here a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and click next. Move on through the wizard, and what file types would you like Mozy Pro to back up? Now these could be all kinds of different things, and you'll notice that any one of these can be selected if you want to do more types of things: video, movie clips, documents, financial data, photo, and images. Now just remember, every little bit that you download or upload is obviously going to be something that you're going to have to pay for the usage. So just always remember, if you have a certain set amount, photos and images, and especially right here, video and movie clips can really eat up your space. Just a little word of advice. So in your company, you might want to say, well, I don't want everyone saving all their funny YouTube video clips that they've downloaded or put on their thing. But things like your presentations, Palm Desktop, and the nice thing is that you can always go to the client configuration control panel, as we'll see. Now before I go ahead and click next here, this is going to take me out to the screen where you actually install install, and it's going to give me an installation key that I don't want to let you guys see, because then, hey, you'll just install mine all over the place. No, I trust you guys, but it takes a little bit of time to get that. What it'll also have is a link that you'll click on to install the software. I'll show you the installation process, and the key entry will take place, of course, behind the scenes, and we'll take a look at what Mozy Pro is going to do. Rather simple and straightforward for most of you as IT guys. You've seen these installation wizards and how they work, so we're going to go quickly through this and actually get to the meat of showing you what the client page, the admin control panel, takes a look at. So we're going to go ahead and click on Next. It's going to ask you the simple, hey, you agree to the fact that we're not responsible for all that kind of stuff. Change where you want to put the remote backup to. We'll go ahead and click Next, and then we're going to go ahead and click Install, which will then install the Mozy Pro Remote Backup software to your desktop. So we'll pause again and see you on the other side. So once again, they go ahead and they've installed the software. They are going to want your license key. If you did forget it, what you'll want to do is check your email, whatever email account you signed up with, your email address. The license key is associated with that particular email address. So it's why you typically want to use one that your work one, so that way you'll remember it, and then you can also check. Also, what I have found is sometimes because of your spam filters, they will block those. So always check your spam or junk email if you're like, hey, I don't see that email that gave me my license key. So I'll pause a second, put in my license key, and then we'll continue with the backup configuration wizard. Now, right before this screen was one I skipped through because it actually showed up here what your key was and all the personal data and things like that. But all it does is say, is this what you want, and make sure there's not any changes, and then you click Next, and it brings you to this screen, which is your encryption settings. Now, Mozy Pro can encrypt it two ways. One, with their own encryption, which uses a 448-bit Blowfish key. Very high powerful key. It's used by all the banking systems around the world. Of course, you can also, because remember, this is their encryption, and if it's your data and they're using theirs, that means they can have access to it. They state that they don't, and but some people are a little particular about that. Well, you can even use your own 256-bit AES key. That way, what will happen is on your own machine, you'll encrypt the data with your 256-bit. It'll then go across the 128-bit SSL connection to Mozy servers, and then when you retrieve it, of course, you have the key, and so you'll be able to decrypt it back on your own machine. So this is, again, this is an option. I'm going to go ahead and just stick with the Blowfish key, which is set up right there. Now, when I click Next, it's going to bring you into here where they tell you what they have. And this is, they pre-select some recommended items to back up. You can obviously, when you go into expert mode and you have your configuration panel, you can choose different things. So we can say, well, let's do spreadsheet and databases. We can do our presentations. That's not too much. And you can look at the size. Right now, the quota that we've set for this is 2 gigabytes. And you've used 41.7. So you can use whatever you want, and we can be a little bit more particular. You'll notice that something is that whenever you want to see the exact things that are being located or backed up, you can double click here in this particular configuration wizard, and you can actually be a little bit more granular. I can come back and say I want my certain documents, my app data, what do you want to be able to be saving here, your downloads, your favorite, do you not want music? So you can be particular. Anything on your local, any grayed out check mark means that not the whole thing is going to be backed up, just a partial. You can even, check this out, add rules, where you can come in, you can click and say include any file type of, you can say .docx, okay, and you can add that. And so now any of the .docx for those is going to be added, and so you can include these type, and you can take off the X and then say, well, you know what, I want to make it just the doc file. So you can do that, and you can add that one too. So now you're adding more, and it automatically fills in what you previously put in. But right now I've got those two. You can click Save, and now it's going to scan through. It'll find those and add just a little bit more, or maybe in those cases I didn't have any docx files remaining in there. So we can do that. Then we click Next, And right here it says your upload speed, they've tested it, is 1.7 megabits per second. So the nice thing is your broadband is fast enough to support the remote backup. So what it'll do is it'll tell you about how fast you can back up the information within 1 day depending on your configuration. So we go ahead and click Next. That brings us here and say, do you want a faster computer or do you want a quicker backup? Now it tells you what I've initially set. There's about 55 files. It's about 41 megabytes. It takes about 10 minutes. Now, of course, if you slide this over, what you can do is you can say, now I want to make sure that it goes quicker, and that way it will then drop your time down. But notice it does recommend at 3/4 speed, so that way you don't get your computer chugging, because a lot of people don't like it when they have to wait for 2 seconds to get their Outlook open. So, go about 3/4 of speed. That works good. We click Next, and it says you're ready to go. Do you want to start your initial backup, or do you want to do it automatically when the computer is idle, or I still want to configure my backup in expert mode? So we'll go ahead and do that. Click Finish, and this is going to bring us back to our Mozy Pro configuration remote backup. So this is going to say, okay, give you some background information, talk about your backup sets, your file system, your options, and even a history. So this is just, again, information that is in place, ready for you to go. You can click on your backup sets. Again, here you can see what information's there. You double click on that My Documents again. Here is your backup set editor on what you want to add in your documents and the different things that you have. CBT nuggets, all those things are available to you. So they still have the information. We can click Save. It keeps that. You can even click on the file system, which then brings you into this screen, very similar to what you saw with the backup sets. Options, check this out. This is where you can show the backup status icon on the file and folders, warn you when you go over quota, warn when a backup hasn't happened in a long time. Remember how they said you can do scheduling. See, here's your automatic. You don't back up if the CPU is over 60% busy. Don't back up unless the computer's been idle for at least 30 minutes. Don't back up more than this many times per day once. You can change all these things on the automatic. If you want to do a scheduled, real simple, click Scheduled and you can say I want a daily backup at 12 midnight, or you can change the hour just by clicking here, whatever you want. How many days you want to do. You can temporarily suspend the automatic and scheduled backups. Maybe you're going to be doing some kind of maintenance on the server or on your computers, and you don't want that thing to kick in at the wrong time when people are doing that. You can also, if you're running a laptop, you can start the automatic backups when the computer is running on battery power. In other words, let's say that you have this plugged into a UPS, or you have a laptop where all of a sudden the power's gone out. This is a way for go, uh-oh, maybe we've lost power at work. Let's start an automatic backup so that way we can get that information backed up before we lose power completely to this particular computer. So that's a really neat little feature that they have there. Performance. This is what we just saw this. Do we want to enable bandwidth throttle? This is how much of your internet connection is being used. Right now it uses as much as possible, or let's say you want to enable it to only 256 kilobits per second up and do it from 9 to 5 because that's when you're at your desk or your office. Or do you want it to always throttle? It just depends on what you do. Here again is that backup speed that we set up a little bit early, or you can turn that off. And then finally in the advanced features, they got some really nifty little things. You can have pre-configured backup sets, certain types of backups that run at certain times. You can show the virtual drive in your computer. So when you go to the C drive and go to My Computer, it will actually show up as a virtual drive, and you can even get a restore option on the right-click menu in Windows Explorer. So on that particular folder, you can right-click, and then it will enable you to bring those files back. You want to enable support for backing up open files. If you got a Word doc that's open and you're working on it, hey, they'll go ahead and start backing that up even though it is open. If you have EFS encrypted files that are on your computer, it will also back those up. So you can do all these cool things. Even if you have a proxy set up, you can click here and configure a little bit beyond the scope of what we're doing here. And then of course you can see even the history of when your backups have occurred. So you can do all these things, and they give you the help in the welcome screen right here. So we're going to go ahead and click save, and now we're completed the whole setup wizard and it's all done. We now want to go to the dashboard, which gives you that overview of your account. So we click finish, and here we are on our dashboard. We have our admin console here, which is kind of cool. Talks about your backups, what you've made over the past week. Kind of cool. Also down here on your machines, right now we're using this one. This is my one machine, my username, followed by what the default user group is. Right now we haven't done anything yet. You can search, which is kind of cool. You can even filter the results of the different types of backups, whether they're backed up within 24 hours, backed up within 1 week, and even backups that are over 1 week old if you're trying to find out the appropriate backup to use. Notice here, you've never backed up yet. So in this case, we can go ahead and do that. Now here, you can go ahead and see, you can search. You can also search and list your users. You can add a new user that has access to certain backups. So maybe you want to have an admin on the computer or the server, but then you can add users. Remember about that multi-user? Remember, you can always come back and make any changes necessary to do this. Now to access this, you just go to moseypro.com and then you would log in with your particular username and password that you gave it. You can also set your configuration, your alerts. You can use your branding and customization for your error messages. Maybe you want to have them particular. So they give you quite a bit of very cool features with Mosey that a lot of people would say, well, I'm just used to just click and go back up, and then it goes off to somewhere and I don't really need to know. You got graphs, you have reports, you can check out any maintenance outages, things like that. If you want to assign those keys for your encryption, you can do that as well from here. You can transfer resources, return any unused resources, things like that. These are things that are obviously beyond the scope of this CBT Nugget, but hey, play around with it, have some fun, do what you need to do. If you want to check out your admin and groups, just for example, I wanted to show you this. When you click on it, you have your admins and groups. So what you want to do is you can create the sub-administrators, you can create the user groups, and again, multi-admin mode is no additional charge. You just select that and click OK, and at that point, once we get in here, we can begin creating the different roles that we want to set up for taking care of our online backups. Now I understand that for most of you in the small to mid-sized business, it might be you. You're the only IT guy. But hey, maybe there's a secretary or administrator or administrative assistant that you want to at least give the ability to get important documents for the CEO or the head of the company. Well, here's a great way to list and add your new sub admins. Just click on new admin, and you can say something like, we'll go ahead and put in Debbie. Put in Debbie's email address, Debbie at mrcbtnuggets.com. I'm the parent admin. Do you want to put them in the default user group? Do you want them in a business root, business group admin? We can select that. And then, of course, you can click Save Changes. And then what will happen is they will then get an email that will give them click the link that allows them to finish and get access to these particular areas. So you can also list the roles that are assigned just by doing that down here and what they have: the business group admin, a business root. These are the system defaults. You can of course add a new role. Those are the ones that come by default. You can say mrcbtnuggets.com. You want a partner admin. You can do that. The name, what's the parent, down to the business group, and then save the changes there. So you can put these groups together and do administrative usage of your backups online. And this comes with Mosey Pro at no extra charge if you want to do that. So all that being said, this is a very well put together, well thought out online backup program. But let's go take a look at one other, Carbonite, before we finish up our CBT Nugget. So I went ahead and typed in the Carbonite.com website here, and to log in, it's rather simple. You can go up to My Account and log in if you already have one. The nice thing about Carbonite is that it is unlimited backup capacity for a single price. Now again, your mileage may vary when you're viewing this particular CBT Nugget. I don't want you to think, wow, man, I thought it was only $54.95 and now it's $58 or $60. You never know with the pricing point that they have. This is a much more simplistic, very straightforward way for you to back up your systems. Doesn't have the real big interface that you saw with Mozy, but sometimes for backup you're not looking for something that particularly involved. You might just want a place where you can send all of your documents, your Word documents, or maybe data sheets, or things like that. You can do that with Carbonite as well. The nice thing is they will allow you to try it for free for 15 days as of right now, and after the 15 days they'll then charge your credit card accordingly for however many computers. And this is, by the way, per computer. This is per computer, which you can add on. Now I'm going to go ahead and log in to my account. I'm going to click here. It's going to come in and it's going to log me into my account. Now, of course, I had this already plugged in, so we were able to get there. Normally, you would get a login screen that would say, what's your username and password, and get in like that. And here you can see the one computer that I have backed up. This is actually my Macintosh, and my online backup for Mac is kind of cool. It allows me to back up my personal computer, which I use this. It was installed back in January of 2010. You can then restore backed up data if you want to onto this computer, if this was actually my Macintosh. Then we also can reinstall Carbonite on a computer. So if you have you maybe rebuilt your computer and you want to use it to get your backed up data. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, you need to get Carbonite back on the computer first, and then it will recognize which computer subscription it is. It'll say which computer. I notice from your login you have 3 computers. Which one do you want to reinstall here? And so it will ask you for that. You can also, and this is kind of cool, let's say you have an older computer you've been using and you're ready to move on to a brand new super duper hyped up computer. You can transfer the subscription to a different computer. So in other words, right now I'm actually on my PC here. If I wanted to transfer this Carbonite subscription over to this computer, I can do so. Now realize though, when you do that, then you will no longer have that particular computer backed up. Or if you want to, just to try it out on this computer, you can click install the 15-day trial on this computer as well. So just to kind of see how that works, you just click on this. It's going to bring you through and do the same thing that you saw before. The first thing it's going to need to do is you're going to need to install Carbonite. It's going to, it even tells you run the download file, you run the setup, and then you finish the installation. It's going to ask you a few questions on how things work. And then once you're done with that, it will then begin the initial backup. So here's a little tip for you, by the way. With Carbonite and most of these, Mozy, SkyDrive, which we'll at least show you how to get to, they, on those initial backups, if you have large amounts of data to back up, whoo doggies, it takes a little while to get there. Like for example, on my MacBook Pro, the one I backed up there, I had about 400 gigabytes of photos and data and things that I have that I want to make sure that it's kept safe. It took, no kidding, 3 to 4 days for that information to get backed up, because realize you're feeding large amounts of data over just that little 1.7 megabit per second uplink, and it just takes time. And it only will do it, Carbonite's the same way as Mozy and most of these, it only does it when your computer is either idle or something's going on. You can even do low priority backup with Carbonite. So this is just an example of how you can get into that. Now the other one that we wanted to mention, again, and by the way, CBT Nuggets does not endorse any of one of these products over one another. We're showing you 3 of the products that are pretty popular that a lot of people use, and then you need to do your own work and investigate whether it's going to work for your particular organization. Okay, so just to remind you what I said at the very beginning, but let's go to Microsoft.com. And on Microsoft website, you might go, oh, it's under products, and where can I find it over here? Actually, it's not. And the easiest way to remember it is it's over on SkyDrive. So if you do a search at Microsoft.com, it'll come up here and give you the access to it. Now, Live SkyDrive is, of course, part of the Windows Live product line. Included as part of Windows 7, you can have access to this. It's a virtual drive system that you can put into place. And the nice thing about SkyDrive, and why I kind of like it, is that once you've installed the SkyDrive little app, the background app, what will happen is you can take your files from your desktop, and literally you can drag them onto the screen, the IE interface that you have, just literally, and then click upload and it will upload it. And that's kind of cool, which is, instead of clicking on the screen, opening up the little app to upload, you can literally drag and drop, which is kind of nice. So that's what they're mentioning right here. All you need to do is go to Windows Live SkyDrive and you can sign up for that particular environment. By the way, good news, if you already have a live.com password, or what they used to call the .NET password or account, whether it's a Hotmail account or you use your live.com, you can sign in and it's instantly available as part of those whole line of materials and applications that you get from Microsoft. So again, some really good stuff in a great way. There are other online backup systems out there. Do your homework and find the one that fits you the most. But these are great ways for you to keep your data safe and secure in case of an emergency. But as we always say, don't forget, use those external drives, back up to DVD, in other words, the removable media. Those are good as well. Use everything within your power to make sure that you have your data, because when you lose your data, boy, that's really hard for your company. Well, we took a look at the very beginning of this CBT Nugget about some things that you should be looking for before you begin using your online backup solutions. Things like, hey, make sure you utilize other sources like your DVD backups, your jump drives, some things like that. Have as many off-site and also away from your computer backups in order for you to keep your data safe. Then we took a look and kind of a nice tour through Mozy, Carbonite, and then pointed you in the direction of SkyDrive. Again, your mileage may vary. Whatever company you decide to go with, these three definitely, and there are others out there, are going to help you with your online backup solutions. I hope you enjoyed the training today, and I'd like to thank you for joining us.